Hi, welcome to the video on a little bit of a comparison between Aeneid Book 8, when Aeneas dreams of the god Tiberinus, and we're going to compare this a little bit with the AP reading that is Book 2, when he dreams of Hector visiting him while Troy's on fire. I'm not saying in this video that Virgil was trying to mimic the other passage or anything like that, or try to draw some, but it's just an interesting discussion of the place of dreams, how dreams are presented, some plot points that are significantly similar. I'm not trying to like write a paper that's going to argue anything here. I'm trying to review the AP reading of Book 2. By using a continuation of our reading into the post-Book 6 Aeneid. And I think that when Aeneas dreams of each one, there are similar things going on there with the idea of identity. So we remember from Book 2, Hector kind of comes to him in a dream, and he says, like, get out of Troy. It's essentially this whole, like, the Trojan identity is over. It's time to go and start something new. And in Book 8, you'll find that this is a god saying, like, this is your new identity. And they both happen through dreams. It's a very interesting thing. And we see a lot of that in Book 3 as well. This is not the place for you. This is not the place for you. And finally, he gets somebody that says, like, this is where you belong. But I found it interesting that Hector was the one who kind of like said, like, Troy is done. The Trojan identity is dead. Move on. And it happened through a dream, and then Aeneas kind of dreams in Italy and has the same moment, except this is our identity now. And so I think that that's the significance here. I'm not gonna sit here and try to argue that like the wording is the same, but because it's really not. But I think you'll see a bit of comparison, and I did when I read it, so I hope that you see the same thing. So let's take a look at the Latin, and again, if you want to have Book 2 out, the line numbers are given there on the screen. It might be helpful for you as a review for those lines. All right, so what I've done to lay this out, and it'll be the exact same text on every slide. So I'm gonna give you the on the left the Book 8, and on the right Book 2. And what I'm going to do is copy this slide in its bare bones, like as you see right now, a few times, and I'm going to be doing sections of it in each slide. So on this slide, you will probably not see me get to the very end, but this exact same text will be on the next 2 or 3 slides. So let's get started with our Book 8 reading. Remember, for some context, in Book 7, Turnus is like sharpening his sword. He's getting ready to go. After the Trojans are welcomed by King Latinus. King Latinus has already had a prophecy that he would give his daughter to the Trojans. And so he's on board with the Trojans being there, his wife not so much. And Turnus is a guy from a nearby town who is he thought he was going to marry Lavinia, and so he's a little mad. And Juno sends I think one of the Furies to kind of like enrage him, and he starts preparing for battle. And so as much as it seems peaceful in both passages, we start off with a sense that the character thinks everything's fine. Aeneas in Book 8 thinks that, hey, I'm welcome in Italy, everything's good. In Book 2, he doesn't know the city's on fire when he's sleeping, and he doesn't know that the city is falling. And so in both, the character Aeneas has a sense of peace, but it's not real. And so it begins with that as he kind of hunkers down for sleep. In Book 8 here, we get Noxerat et terras animalia fessa per omnis, alitium pecudum quae genus supor altus abebat, cum pater in ripa gelidi quae sub aeteris axe, Aeneas tristi turbatus pectora bello, procubit seram quae dedit per membra quietem. You see, it was night. Nice agreement here. Terras to omnis, omnis, omnes, being the accusative plural archaic form. Animalia fessia, you get a little bit of a chiasmus there. through all the lands. The tired animals, the tired beasts, those are the neuter plural though, so those are accusative. Alitum, pecudum, koi. These are genitives. The genus is going to be, since it's neuter, another accusative. And then you get sopor altus, finally your nominative and your verb habebat. So we have deep sleep, had or like grabbed, tired animals through all the lands, the race of birds, and flocks, pecudum. So it was night, sleep was gripping everything, cum pater in ripa, when Father Aeneas, goes with Aeneas in the next line, on the bank, and under, this is actually a very beautiful image, under the cold arc of the sky. You can imagine from horizon to horizon it looking like a giant arc. And it's described as cold. It's cool because, of course, at night it gets cooler. It's kind of a comforting cool, I think. So Aeneas is described as tristi turbatus pectora bello. So he does have a sense that there's war coming. And so tristi goes to bello. Turbatus pectora, but pectora is an interesting word because it's accusative. It's accusative of respect here. He's got the kind of like the deep, the worry in his heart. So having been disturbed by a sad war in his heart, he laid down procubuit. He lays down. And he gives seram quietem. He gives welcome sleep to his through his limbs. It's a very nice image. So he kind of like allows himself to rest for a second. So let's contrast over here, just with a couple lines. Tempus erat, it was the time, quo, when, first, quies. Notice that we have the quietem here, this nice rest, right? First rest began for tired, ill, almost mortals, and most welcome, the most welcome rest came upon as a gift of the gods. So we get a little bit of a sense that there's some kind of peace being brought here. I guess I take back my initial thought on here. He does know about the war coming, the brewing war, the tension there. So he's a little bit worried about it. But he does give himself a chance to relax. So there's this kind of calm serenity. Especially, I really like the imagery if he's laying on the bank under the cold arc of the sky. You can imagine a very starry, cool night where Aeneas lays on the banks of the Tiber River. Huic Deus ipse loqui fluvio Tiberinus ammoinio populeas inter senior se a tollere frondes visus eum tenuis glauco velabat amictu carbasus et crinis umbrosa tegebat arundo. Tum sic et fari et curas his demere addictis. And I'll stop there, and I'll go to the next slide after we do this chunk there, after 35. But we get a description of the god Tiberinus. And so we can say Deus ipse, the god himself, and then of course he is Tiberinus, so we get that nice thing there. The god himself, yes, the god himself, Tiberinus, is the god of the place. So this genitive going with Deus, the god of the place. Huic is dative, but we're gonna get to that in a second, and then fluvio ammonio, of course, agree. A little bit of a synthesis structure connecting the god and the river there, which I kind of like. But it's an ablative, so there's not much use for the ablative. Maybe an ablative place here, but I think we're going to correct that when we get to Atolure. He's an old man. Populeas, inter populeas. Senior goes with Tiberinus. He's old. And of course, Frondes goes with Populeas. Actually, it's the other way around. Populeas goes with Frondes. But among the poplar leaves, he seemed to lift himself from the river. What kind of river? The Amoino River, the lovely river. So he appears kind of like just rising himself. He's the god of the river, so it seems to make sense. Eum tenuis glauco velebat amictu carbasus. It's a lot of interesting words here that you might have to look up. I'll of course give them to you. So we have this linen, this fine linen, enclosed him. He's wearing it. Cloaked him in a glauco amictu, in a gray mantle. Et crinis umbrosa tegebat torundo. And so you get here, crinis, if you scan it, you'll know it's a long I, so it's accusative plural. And it hid his hair, or sorry, a shadowy harundo. It's a reed. I had to look up that word. The shadowy reed, or like twigs, hid his hair. And so you can imagine this river god with like twigs in his hair, reeds that are growing near rivers. They're kind of like intertwined in his hair. Then so we have to kind of like gap your seam here with visus, and he seemed to, here we go, ad fare, to speak thus, speak thus, and to demere, to take away the cares with these words. And so he's going to kind of soothe Aeneas's worried heart. But over here, the description here is actually quite peaceful, right? He's wearing a kind of a gray cloak, and it's kind of a nice image with these reeds in his hair. He's a little bit messy, but he's supposed to be because he's a river god. And he's there to calm things down. Let's go over here to Hector. In sleep, behold, before his eyes, maestissimus Hector. Means like gloomy, very gloomy. And we are, of course, we see him, visus, same word, doesn't it? He seems to be present to me and to pour out just huge weeping. So this god is very serene. Hector is very broken. And so we describe him as like bloodied and having been drawn by a chariot. He's got dust all like messed up in his hair, and he's been kind of pierced through the ankles, right, so that he could be dragged around with a chariot. And he's a very different character. And so the image is very different. You almost get a sense of like what fate has in store, like what the identity is. The identity here in Book 8 on the left is given by a very tranquil god who's calming everybody down, who's worried about war. He's calming Aeneas down, at least, who's worried about war. And over in Book 2, you see kind of the grim nature of when they were still Trojans. Like, what is the Trojan identity? Well, Hector embodies it better than anybody else, and it is bloodied and dead. And you can see he's got like a dirty beard. His hair is just matted. with blood. We, of course, describe his hair in both of them. It's a very interesting thing to do, because one is just simply says that it's like it's got like nice reeds in it. And then the other is matted with blood and he's got wounds. It's a very, very different image in the two passages, but I think if you're connecting the idea of identity here, the god Tiberinus is going to lay down like, this is your new identity, and it's a very positive thing, whereas Hector is like, your old identity is actually dead, so get out. And the kind of the weight of that is given in the image of Hector versus the image of the god here in Book 8. I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about what's actually said. Okay, so we're going to start the speeches of both Tiberinus, and we'll read a little bit of the one that Hector says. But I think you're going to find a very different tone here. So this is one where you're not going to say, like, oh, they're very much alike. They're going to say, oh, they're kind of doing different things. But I think that there's very specific wording in each one that has to do with that idea of what our identity is for Aeneas and the Trojans. I guess we should stop calling them Trojans. O sate gente deum. Descendant of the race of the gods. Descended from the race of the gods. There you go. And so sate is your vocative. But gente is an ablative, so just be careful. Ablative separation there. But it's important that it's a vocative for in a second, so in 2 lines down, well, that'll be important. Ex ostibus, the preposition Troianum, goes with urbem. Qui, there we go. All right, so actually the qui is going to actually start at Troianum. So let's get rid of our bracket down here. There we go. Because we need a direct object with reves. Nobis aeternaque pergama servas. So we have 2 little clauses here. And first of all, he's talking to him, so your second person is active. So it's you who brings back, reves, you who brings back for us, interesting, for us, it's a god talking, the Trojan city from the enemies, and you who protects eternal Troy, eternal Pergama, the citadel itself. So he's saying that, like, look, you're the one protecting that identity, right, to the Trojan identity. Of course, the city of Troy is dead, and it's present tense, and so we're not trying to say he's still protecting the city of Troy or something like that, or he did, because it's present tense. It has to do with that identity. That's why it's eternal. Anyway, expectate is a very interesting word because it's actually a PPP, a participle, but that E ending means it's vocative. So actually, your participle goes with the vocative sate up there. You, having been awaited on the Laurentine soil and in the Latian fields, the fields of Latium. So apparently they kind of knew, well, the gods at least knew he was coming to Italy, and so the land itself was awaiting him. And I love this next line. It's very clear. It's very it's very, very prophetic. Hic tibi certadomos certi ne absiste penates. Hic, here, tibi certadomos is a certain home for you. It's not certain like in a certain kind. It's more like a very definite. It is like you've come to the right place for sure this time. This is not a trick. This is not like, oh, you could stay. This is definitely a home for you. And certainly the penates, and it says ne absiste, do not like go, do not like oppose them, do not resist these things. Here are certain household gods. So in other words, like, this is the place a home that you were waiting for Troy. This is it. Neu belli terrore minis. So do not fear the threats, the mines of war. We've seen the infinitive used as a command before, so it's not all that bad. And so, do not fear the threats of war. Every uproar. Tumor is like an excitement, something that's blown up. But it has to do with, it's the opposite of a calm. So like it's a very interesting contrast. We just had like the calm laying by the river. Now he says every like uproar and angers of the gods have gone away, have yielded. This is not quite true yet. However, I think the river god is, of course, telling him that it's all but done. You just have to do like one more little thing here. All of those things that you had to deal with the shipwreck and Dido and all that stuff. I think he's referring to the idea that there's going to be a war, but you already know the outcome, and it's nothing to fear. It's nothing to worry about, even though it's going to last 4 more books. But it's this beautiful idea of him bringing peace and assurance to Aeneas. And I think that does a lot for the identity here, because it lays down, like, this is your new identity, like, hic tibi. It reminds me actually of Book 4, when Aeneas tells Dido, hic amor, hic patria est. This is my love, this is my fatherland, of course, referring to going to Italy. And it has a very similar tone with the word hic there. And I like this overall, because over here, the voice of Hector is very different, where he's just saying, alas, get out of here. And so, again, a very different idea that, like, this is certainly your home. We've been waiting for you. Versus, like, get out from this place, and this place is your identity. So, like, leave the Trojan citadel, the identity. And so we have, like, flee, rip yourself from these flames. The enemies have the walls. Troy falls from its high summit. So he's saying, like, like, leave the identity of Troy. Troy is done. It's almost depressing. And then I love this line: if Troy would be able to be defended by a right hand, it would have been defended with this right hand. Of course, Hector saying that, like, if Troy would have, well, the only hope for Troy's identity was me, and I'm dead. So get out. Anyway, I really like the contrast there. Again, I don't know if Virgil intended for that to happen, but it certainly did happen regardless. Okay. Iamque tibi ne vana putes, haec fingere somnum, litores ingens inventa sub illicibus sus, triginta capitum fetus enixa jacebit, alba solo lecubans, albi circubera nati. All right. And now, in order that you not think that sleep shapes these vain things, these empty things. In other words, like, he's like, I know that you don't think this is just a dream. He kind of makes a little prophecy for him. To you there will be ingens sus, a huge sow, a female pig. It will be found where inventa, sorry, sub illicibus, and then litores goes with illicibus. It will be found under the oak trees of the shore. And we keep going. It will lie there, having brought forth 30 children. Capitum is an interesting word. I think I think it's just referring to the heads, 30, 30 of little heads. But I honestly don't really have an idea about Capitum. I apologize. Alba, a white sow, solo recubans, reclining on the ground. Albi circum ubera nati, and the children are white around her udders. So you can like there's just a white sow with 30 little white piglets. They're all white as well. And then I like this line right here as well. The next one. Hic locus urbis erit. This will be the place of a city. And you can imagine what city we're talking about. Ea requies certa. This will be certain rest of your labors. In other words, like this is the place where all of the labors will end. This is where your destiny is fulfilled. He's not talking about Rome. Actually, I realized as I was talking just now, Alba and Albi, these white sows, these is going to be the place of Alba Longa. Of course, we're emphasizing the Albi, and then we see Alba Longa is going to be found there by Aeneas in a second. From this place, Tiberinus, and that goes with Omnis, 30 years, with 30 years, going back, in other words, returning. Aeneas will found a city, and that city will be Alba Longa. A city of a bright name, clari cognominis. So those are genitives. A city of a bright name. It's playing on the idea of Alba Longa. Alba means white. So he's kind of saying it's a city of a bright name, Alba Longa. Anyway, kind of cool. And then Auden Kertakano. I do not. Sorry, let's just use I do not. How means hardly, but also means do not. I do not sing uncertain things. In other words, I don't tell false prophecies. And here we have nunc now qua ratione starts a clause, quote, insta starts a clause all the way through Victor, so you get two little clauses there. And you'll note the subjunctive of expedias with an interrogative and a verb of telling or teaching in this case. And so we get an indirect question. I will tell you in a few words, like, pay attention, ad veritate. Turn to me. I will tell you in a few words by what method, by what reason, you as a victor are to bring about it which is would happen, would just be present. And so he's going to tell him now after this, like, how he's going to come about these things. And I really think showing Aeneas the kind of the prophecy of Alba Longa kind of solidifies the idea that the great things are going to happen for Aeneas, and that identity is certain, it's sure. So I like the sureness here. Let's do some highlighting here. The certa and the certi up here, everything is certain. And we get finally in the Aeneid, there's a lot of obscured vision and obscured language, stuff like that in the Aeneid, and finally we get something that is clear. We get clear sight a couple times. Actually, in book 2, there's another kind of moment of clear sight, but you get clari here. It means bright, but I think he's, of course, referring to the idea that it is something that is definitely going to happen. It is a sure prophecy. And so with the uncertainty that would come with Hector saying, "Get out and just go onto the sea," take the Penates and find a new home, right? Take some comrades, etc. There's uncertainty as to what's to come, and here we are provided certainty, which is good news. And anyway, I hope that was a good way to connect an AP reading that is worthy of review with continuing into book 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, however far we get this year. So thanks for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, I hope this finds you well.